You really can't replicate that sound through digital software and straight line speed and instant torque. The problem nowadays is with brands like Lexus that used to have a V6 that was their staple in a lot of their products are now going to a turbocharged 4-cylinder. Problem is those are premium brands and they're charging more money than their older V6s, and frankly, they don't sound like a premium drivetrain. So guys, we're going to be talking about engine noise. It's a very prevalent thing in gas cars, and one of the things enthusiasts love most about their gas cars, and it's something that's going away with electric cars. Yeah, sure, electric cars have a subtle motor whirring noise, some have augmented noises for like alerting pedestrians, and then some take it even further like Kia or BMW with some orchestral or futuristic cyberpunk sounds played through the speakers. A lot of people are happy to be going away from noisy engines and some are not. It depends on who you talk to and what they drove. If you drove a 4-cylinder Toyota RAV4, you're going to be very happy to drive a electrified car because that 4-cylinder is an extremely rattly engine. But if you drove something like a Mustang and you're going to a Mustang Mach-E, you're going to probably miss that rumbly, burly V8. And that's the reason I went to a Audi S4 over a Volvo S60. Even the Volvo with its 4-cylinder, supercharged, turbocharged, which you didn't really hear either, I still enjoyed hearing an engine under the hood. So we're going to talk about this Acura RDX, which has a 280 horsepower, 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. And then we're going to talk about Nicole's Mazda CX-90 with a 280 horsepower turbocharged inline 6. And then we're going to talk about the Audi S4 with its turbocharged V6. So let's set off and talk about this 4-cylinder. Because 4-cylinders have a rough reputation in the automaker space because there's a lot of benefits to them in terms of fuel economy, and with turbocharger technology, you're able to combine a relatively torquey and powerful engine with good fuel economy numbers, depending on the brand. Some brands like the Japanese don't do it as well as some brands like BMW, for example, reliability aside. So take a listen to this 4-cylinder in this Acura. Now, a lot of brands, Acura specifically, do augment the sound coming out of their engine. Some 4-cylinders just sound different from others, especially as maybe the intake or the turbo spools up. Like in this Acura, you hear a little bit more. But 4-cylinders, like that Toyota RAV4, for example, that I mentioned, they have kind of an economy sounding rattly nature. And that's okay in an economy Toyota product, because people are paying for an A and a B and appliance. They're not looking to rev it out and hear that 4-cylinder go. Problem nowadays is with brands like Lexus that used to have a V6 that was their staple in a lot of their products, the RX, for example, are now going to a turbocharged 4-cylinder, which is fine. That's the way of the future. They're torquey, they're more fuel efficient. That's what customers want. But also, the problem is those are premium brands, and they're charging more money than their older V6s, and frankly, they don't sound like a premium drivetrain. They're rattly and they sound under stress, or they sound overstressed when you're making a pass on the highway, or, you know, maybe giving it a little bit more gas in town. It just doesn't sound like a Lexus product, and that's just a controversy with these turbocharged 4-cylinders. So I'm going to turn us around and give you kind of a demonstration of this RDX's turbocharged 4-cylinder, because in my opinion, this is one of the better sounding 4-cylinders on the market. Some other examples, engine augmentation noises aside, the Audi S4 and the VW Golf R, VW's GTI, which we recently drove, yes, they have engine enhancement, but they still sound good. So let's throw this into sport and just give it a little bit of whirl. This engine is very torquey, has a good power band. That 10-speed automatic makes use of all that available power. It's pretty fuel efficient, and it doesn't sound too bad when you get up into the higher rev range. A 4-cylinder kind of sounds like a, or not like a, more of like a, but this sounds like a, it's a little bit more deeper, a little bit. I know I'm not the bestest imitation of a 4-cylinder, but it sounds a little bit deeper, a little bit more of an aggressive tone, and it's something you kind of have to hear and listen to a couple times to appreciate. And for those who don't know, a 4-cylinder heads in the engine bay, and most are transverse in the engine bay, meaning the cylinders kind of go like across, and that's pretty common setup for most cars with a 4-cylinder. Now don't get me wrong, this 4-cylinder doesn't sound as exciting as some other engines I've driven before. But it's not too bad. That's pretty fun. My final thoughts with this 4-cylinder in this Acura is, while it may lack in some engine characteristic and resonance that you would get from like a V6, it makes up for in way more torque, way more power, a lighter engine, and much better fuel economy than most V6s. There are exceptions between brands and different turbocharging methods, but this is a very well done implementation of a 4-cylinder. So now we are in a 6-cylinder car. Now, obviously, I don't have an 8-cylinder car to kind of do a full comparison. But this is an inline 6, so the engine cylinders go boom, 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 parallel with the front to back of the car. Now, inline 6s are popular with BMW and Mercedes-Benz, and now Mazda. And it's just so interesting that the arrangement of an engine, regardless of performance, chops of a car, this is a comfortable family SUV, the arrangement of an engine totally changes the characteristic of it. The weight distribution, the resonance, the sound, the power capabilities, vibration, all that good stuff. So just looking at this car holistically from a luxury family side, while that 4-cylinder in the Acura isn't too bad, this one has a nice resonance. It's not guttural, it's not a rumble, it's not aggressive, it's just, it sounds like there's an engine there, and it sounds like there's weight to it. So let's take it out for a drive and talk about it. This is a newer engine from Mazda. Newer car, new everything. There is a hybrid powertrain with it, but it's a mild hybrid. And one of the biggest selling points of this car is that inline six made it to a rear-wheel drive biased powertrain. It's a very premium powertrain because BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and all these brands, we'll go this way, have kind of made that their staple of engines. So it's affiliated with performance, luxury, and very smooth driving characteristics. Now, this is not as smooth as BMW's inline six or Mercedes, but it's still very nice and smooth. Now, V6s are, just any six-cylinder is like kind of the sweet spot for people because it's not too inefficient, but it's not too rattly. So even just listening to that slight pull, just a very different sound compared to that four-cylinder. And now V6s are going to be missed so much because all these brands are going to four-cylinders, which is totally fine, totally adequate when it comes to a power, fuel economy, emissions standpoint. But you're just missing that there's an engine under the hood sound. There's something present there. It's the old Lexus RX with a V6 or Toyota Highlander with a V6. And then get back into like a Toyota Highlander with a turbocharged four-cylinder like the newer ones. You're just gonna, it's not gonna get that same sense of premium. And it's fine. Not everyone cares about what they're hearing from their car and stuff. But if you're spending money on a car, we're gonna make it right. If you're spending money on a car, you wanna make sure everything, when you're spending 40 grand, 50 grand, 30 grand, whatever, 20 grand, you wanna make sure your car sounds good. Because you wanna make sure you're not making it sound like a bargain basement. So we're just going to do a little bit of a right turn. Now, just because this car has natural engine sounds doesn't mean Mazda decided to augment it at the upper rev range, much like Acura did on that other one. It's not the most pleasing sound, but up to like 4,500 RPM. Sounds pretty good. And it is a very smooth progressive power band once you put your foot down. And around town, it's pretty smooth with that mild hybrid system. There's some jerks every now and then. But that 10-speed and that Acura RDX, while it was pretty smooth, there's just something you really don't know until you get back and forth between cars, four-cylinder, six-cylinder, V8, or 8-cylinder, that I've just been able to figure out that there's just so much more natural smoothness because there's just more power per cylinder. Not power per cylinder, there's more power available in the torque band for a four-cylinder, or excuse me, I'm getting all my words mixed up, in a larger displacement engine with more cylinders versus a smaller displacement engine with a turbocharger. Now, I don't have any naturally aspirated cars to show you, but I mean, naturally aspirated V6s and obviously a naturally aspirated V8 sound incredible. Incredible. So, overall, this is a very nice powertrain. And Nicole coming from her Mazda CX-5, check out that video on the channel. It's definitely an upgrade in sound, power, quality, and space, but that's, a whole separate video. Mazda CX-90, why we were excited to get it, why we dumped the Mazda CX-5, and our thoughts on the Mazda CX-5. So check those out on the channel. Last but not least, we have the Audi S4. Again, 6-cylinder engine like that Mazda. This is a turbocharged V6, and it's also a S model for Audi, so it's a performance engine. It's got some tuning in the transmission and the ECU, and it's got a sport exhaust resonator, which is essentially just one of the exhaust system's mufflers that's just a little bit smaller, a little bit less restrictive. Has a good sound, as you can tell, on a cold start, and then the transmission shifting gives it a nice upshift, or farts, as people in the community like to call it. So this is kind of like a, this is kind of also the next level of gas cars. So you have, you know, different engine sizes, different augmentations, sounds played through the speakers to enhance the sound of the engine. And then you have physical enhancements. Physical enhancement sounds like a male performance enhancement joke. Really putting the stick shift in the stick.
That's what she said.
This is a performance car, but even then, this V6 sounds different than that inline 6 in the Mazda. It's got a sportier tone. It's got some more resonance and, you know, almost reverberation from the exhaust. It's louder. It's meant to be. And there's just so much you can do with any of these engines to a point. I don't think people are going to be missing a 4-cylinder that's straight piped and sounds like a absolutely loud fart. But there's a lot you can do with a V6, a V8, and some 4-cylinders to give an enhanced engine tone, some resonance, some loudness. And it's something people are definitely going to miss coming to electric cars in the future. The combination of all the performance upgrades, transmission tuning, engine tuning, exhaust tuning, there's a lot more to listen to in this car. You got the engine revving out, the transmission shifting, and the little bump, very subtle, just around town. You can add an intake and you can hear the turbo whoosh. It's just a very pleasant sound. Yeah, it's not the quietest thing, but the goal of this car is not to be necessarily quiet. But I think it strikes a good balance, especially on the highway. There's no rattly nature. And around town, it's just a very pleasing engine to listen to, in my opinion. This is definitely not the most inspiring V6 in the performance segment for sure, but I think it strikes a decently good balance when you're considering it as a performance offering and a luxury cruiser. When I switched from the Volvo, which is polar opposite because it was a luxury cruiser with straight line speed but no real performance mission, to this Audi S4 with a kind of balanced, more, you know, speed and performance sound and all that good stuff, I felt like, yes, I'm putting money into the powertrain, but it definitely sounded more heavy, more resonancy, just more interesting. And it's, you know, for better or worse, it's just something that's going away with electrification. We can also switch this over into S mode and get some burbles and backfires. And some people definitely do not like that sound, for sure. Audi's burbles are nothing really special. But I think just as you accelerate, as you push more into an engine, there's always just some sound you're listening to differently rather than just a whir of electric motors. Whether it's as the RPMs rise, the car's bringing on more of a deeper tone or a louder tone, or, you know, the turbo spools up. Transmission needs to warm up a little bit. But even then, you're hearing just a lot of different sounds and characteristic, and just makes the driving experience a little bit more special, a little more enjoyable. This is not the most unique turbocharged V6, sorry, turbocharged 6-cylinder from any brand. There's plenty of them that have it. It's a nice looking TT RS, maybe? Or just an Audi TT? Probably thinks I'm following him. Maybe I am. But it's just, for me, and I'll kind of wrap it up on this car, for me, I was a saxophone player, I was a musician, and I have somewhat of a musical ear, or a sound ear, I guess the best way to put it. I enjoy listening to these engines. I don't want a riced out Audi or a riced out Acura, but I do want something with some character, some soul, some performance sound, because I drove a Tesla Model 3. And when you get rid of the differences between electric and gas, that's just something you really can't replicate that sound through digital software and straight line speed and instant torque. And that's why I'm just very into these sounds. And, you know, your mileage may vary, your desires may not be the same. You might just want a car that gets from A to B. Or maybe you want a car that does sound not too rattly and stuff. I know plenty of people that have gotten to some of the new 4-cylinders in the luxury space, and they're disappointed with what they're hearing. I'm gonna go this way. There are also people who don't want the most premium sounding car. They just need and want a car that gets them from A to B. Maybe they just want a hybrid. They don't want to hear an engine. They just want the smoothness and the fuel economy and all that. There's so many different reasons why people go for different cars. But I think objectively, the resonance, the sound, the uniqueness is just lost, and it's engine enhancements and sound enhancements for EVs especially. It's just not a substitute for that. So hope everyone enjoyed. This video was kind of just, you know, just a conversation between you and I, but let me know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on, you know, the implementation of lower displacement engines in luxury products, the discontinuement of some V8s, naturally aspirated, and the introduction of some fake engine noises into electric cars and gas cars? Let me know your thoughts. I think this video was pretty important to me because it's kind of one of the reasons I'm still sticking with a gas car, performance gas car, for this foreseeable future, and sticking towards those larger displacement engines. I'm willing to pay that fuel economy tax to maintain that resonance and quality. I could sit in my car all day, and I do, talking to myself, to you guys, and listening to that engine. So with that being said, please give it a like, subscribe. Really appreciate your support. As always, this is Dave with POV Drives. See you on the next one. Peace.